All right, we can go ahead and get started. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this morning, or sorry, this afternoon. It's been a long day already. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Kelly Kindlesberger. I am one of our partner success managers here at Infrascale. You might recognize me from a past webinar. Chris and I have done a couple of these. We try to do them about once a month. I cover the Mid-Atlantic territory for Infrascale. So you either got this invite from me, because you're a partner that I work with, or you got it from one of my teammates. Jay, Nick, Garrett, Brian, there's several of us that been in the data protection space for about 6 years. And I've got my solutions architect, Chris Bayne, here with me. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself? Chris, I think you're muted.
Oh, I am muted. Sorry about that. So
much better.
I've also been here for about 7 months. I worked with Kelly previously. I've been doing disaster and recovery for over 20 years. I've actually been everything from support guy, fly-to-site disaster recovery person. I was actually in New York helping a couple of big customers recover after big data center losses. So I've definitely not only got experience talking about it, but I've got some real world experience dealing with disaster recovery.
Thanks, Chris. I just turned on the.
Were you turning on your earrings? Absolutely.
Earrings, yeah. Try to make these fun for you guys. We had our Halloween themed one last time, and have our holiday themed one this time. So Chris, let's go ahead and get started. I know you've got quite a great demo to show the folks. So guys, I'm going to run through just a couple slides, let you know about the company. We're going to run through Chris's demo, and then we have a really quick quiz at the end. So we do have a $25 Amazon gift card that Santa dropped off to the office last night for us to give away. So pay attention, there will be a quiz at the end, and I'll be sending someone that gift card. And then at the very end, we will have a quick Q&A. All right, so just like the invite said, today we're going to be covering how to protect and restore Hyper-V with ease. So Chris is going to show us how to configure Hyper-V backup, how to recover Hyper-V data in 3 ways, and then failing a Hyper-V server to the cloud and migrating back. So I'm looking forward to seeing those, Chris. Okay, so guys, just a very high level overview of Infrascale. Many of you have probably seen this before, but I certainly don't want to assume that everyone on the call knows about us. Been around a little over 10 years, currently protecting over 500 petabytes of data across over 50,000 customers. We are 100% channel focused, so we work with over 1,000 partners like yourself. We have 3 products, and the overall mission of those 3 products is to eradicate downtime and data loss. Okay, so how to engage Infrascale. So before I move on to the products, I just wanted to cover these 2 topics here, and I'll be sending out this slide deck at the end of the day, so that way everyone will have these links. If you find an opportunity, please deal reg that with us. That way we're aware of the opportunity. That ensures us that you are the only partner to receive that deal reg pricing. So you're protected there on your front end margin. Also, you get a $100 Amazon gift card for you as a sales rep and you as the SE. So a total of $200 in Amazon gift cards once that closes. I know the graphic says $25. That's actually $100. So you register there at that link. We also ask you to fill out a sizing form. It's about 20 questions. It helps us understand the client's environment and properly size them out for an Infrascale appliance. So that is for those disaster recovery as a service opportunities. Okay, so guys, like I said on the first slide, we've got 3 products. Obviously today we're focusing on disaster recovery as a service, or DRaaS as we like to call it. There at the bottom, you'll see we've got cloud backup. That's our direct to cloud offering, allows you to recover at the file and folder level. That's going to be for those endpoints, desktops, laptops, tablets, mobile devices, great peace of mind knowing that your data is protected in the cloud. We've also got anomaly detection there, so that helps you discover, heaven forbid, if ransomware has gotten in to one of your clients' environments. For DRaaS, that is sold traditionally in a 3-year subscription, but as of a few weeks ago, we started offering it in a 1-year subscription as well. So that is now offered in a 1-year and a 3-year term. License per protected terabyte per month. It is appliance to cloud. There is no charge for that appliance. So it's a true as a service OpEx model, billed monthly. This is going to be for those critical servers and applications that your clients can just not afford to have go down. Our commitment here is that we can get power to any machine in the cloud within 15 minutes or less. We've got a cloud boot histogram on our public-facing website that shows you those actual results over the last 14 days. Our average is 70 seconds, but again, the commitment there is 15 minutes. You can test, when you need to. There's no extra charge. You don't have to tell us ahead of time. There's no paperwork. We try to make it as easy as possible for you. Lastly, there at the top, you'll see our cloud application backup offering. That's our cloud-to-cloud solution. It's going to allow you to recover past 30 days. Office 365, G Suite, etc. Those all have 30-day caps for deleted files. So this tool would let you recover past that. All right, so I just want to reiterate on DRaaS, which is what we're here to talk about today. It's all hardware, all software, all cloud included. It's got that 15-minute failover guarantee, remote support, implementation, and training. So once your appliance ships, our implementation team is in contact with you, scheduling time to get with you once you have that appliance and can get it set up with them. They want to make sure those first couple backups are running smoothly and that you feel comfortable managing it there in the console. Again, we're 100% channel focused. It is rebrandable. All 3 of those products are out of one dashboard. Lastly, if you use ConnectWise Automate or Manage, we do integrate with those tools. So that's, if you have questions around that, we can certainly chat about that at different times, but those folks that use those tools really seem to like that.
All right, so it's my turn to do some talking. So before we jump in and we actually take a look, I just wanted to kind of do an overview of how this particular product's architected. So if we see here, we've got our primary site. Again, it's an appliance-based solution. So we're going to provide you that appliance. That's included in that per protected terabyte price. What the appliance basically allows you to do is to go out and grab all those physical or virtual servers. Today, we're specifically looking at Hyper-V, and it's going to bring those in. It's going to dedupe the data. It's going to compress the data. It's going to encrypt the data, and then it's going to store it. So what that's going to allow you to do, and I'm going to demonstrate 3 different ways we can get files back, but we can restore individual files, granular recovery. We can restore that virtual machine back to that Hyper-V environment, and we can also spin it up on top of that appliance locally. So if that Hyper-V server went down, we can spin up those machines, get them back up and running while you guys rebuild that box. Now, not only can we do this locally, but we can do this between your data center and our cloud, or even between your data center and a different data center. So we can take those backups that we have on here, and we can replicate those to a secondary appliance. We're going to replicate that encrypted, and then again, we're going to store it encrypted in the cloud, and that also gives us the ability then to boot those machines in the cloud. So I live in Florida. We have a lot of hurricanes that threaten to come get us. So we have a lot of customers that will, test their DR before the hurricane comes, or actually fail over and be out of the way of the path of the hurricane, and then fail back, once the storm's already passed and they know that everything's okay. Now, Kelly did mention that we have the 3 products. All 3 products are managed through the same dashboard. I'm actually going to start out in the dashboard before you showing you guys that, so we can go ahead and skip past this one and jump right into configuring Hyper-V backups. So what exactly do we have to do to be able to protect Hyper-V environment? Let's go ahead and jump into the demo here. So as you can see, we're starting out here at the dashboard. We can see this dashboard is very easily laid out for you to be able to manage multiple customers if you need to. So you can create different partners and companies and different accounts. If we go in here and we look at DR sites and appliances right now, we're actually going to see all the appliances for all the customers that are under this dashboard. So what I'm going to do to clean this up a little bit for us is we're going to look at one specific company. We're going to look at the Orlando office. So as you can see, I'm Chris Bayne. I'm the admin for that one. We'll log in as that company admin, and that's going to restrict us just to seeing the resources, the alerts, the monitoring that's just for that office. Now when we go into DR sites and appliances, we're going to just see the 2 appliances that are associated with the Orlando office. So let's go ahead and jump into appliance 2 and start doing that configuration. So when we set up the appliances, it's really easy. We're just going to give them an IP address. And then from that point out, you're going to manage everything through this web. When it's brand new, it's going to Hyper-V. Now it's super simple to set up Hyper-V. We do need to install an agent on the Hyper-V server. So whether that's a traditional server that's running Hyper-V services, or it's a Hyper-V core server that doesn't have a GUI, we can still install it on both of those. So if we go in here and we say we want to add a connection, even if we haven't pre-added that server, we can hit add new client, and that's going to let us put in a client description, name, pick the OS. We can actually push out and install that agent software for you guys, and then we just give it what schedules we want it to obey. Now, if we already have it configured, you can pick it from the drop-down, and once you do that, it's going to discover all these machines that are in that Hyper-V environment. Now, you can choose to protect them all, which we call registered and unregistered. So if it's registered, it's got a schedule and we're protecting it. If it's unregistered, it doesn't have a schedule and we're not protecting it. You can choose that when you add them. You can register and unregister at any point in time after that. And you can also pick, hey, when I add a new server to this environment, do I want it to automatically register that server, or do I want it to not protect that server by default? I typically choose to protect everything by default, and if I ever need to, I can always go in and unregister the ones that I don't need to have protected. So that's how simple it is to configure your Hyper-V backups, right? You just install the agent on the Hyper-V server, not a big deal, and then you're going to be able to assign those schedules and pick, when you want to protect it, whether you want to do a full, an incremental, or a differentials. So let's go ahead and take a look here now at how we can get data back from that environment. So here I've just jumped over from the Hyper-V tab to the Summary tab, and this lets us see everything that's going on. We can see, whether it's a physical server, a retired server, a Hyper-V, what kind of backups we've got. We can see how much data we're protecting from that client. We can see what the last successful backup for that client was. We can see what schedule we have it assigned to. We can see how we're backing up. So this one's Hyper-V. And then we also have our boot verification. So we can see that we booted this machine. We booted it up off of this backup right here. And it was able to come online and boot up successfully. Now, what if we needed to get some files back from this particular server? Maybe we wanted to recover some files from here. So we can do browse and restore. That's going to come up and it's going to show us all of our different, let me grab the Hyper-V one. We'll do browse and restore. That's going to show us all the different backup points in time that we have. So we can pick one of those. Here we can choose whether we want to get back VMDK files from it or the contained files. So right here, if you choose the VMDK, it's going to bring back VMware type files. But I'll show you guys a way to get back your actual Hyper-V files here in a second. So here we've got contained files. What that's going to do now is it's going to mount up those virtual disks and allow me to browse them and pick files that I would want to restore from them. So here we can go in here. We can go out and we can look at user data. And we can see, all right, on my desktop, I have these particular photos out there, right? So if I wanted to recover these photos, I can push them to any of our machines that we've got configured as a client. I can redirect the path. So maybe I don't want to overwrite it, but I want to put it on the desktop in a folder called recovered file. Or I could also simply just click on this particular file and it's going to download it to my machine. And then we've got it so we can email it out easily back to that customer and be able to provide them with that file. So this is kind of the traditional approach to backup and recovery, right? We're going to back something up. We can go in, we can recover those files, those directories. Well, what if we want to push it back into the environment? right? I want to recover this machine. So I'm going to go in here and go to restore. Again, I can pick from what point in time I'd like to do that restore from. I can click next. Now I can pick the server I want to push it to. It's going to go out and get the disks and the information about that Hyper-V server. So I happen to know that on this server, I have a lot of space on the S drive, and I've created a folder there for doing restore. So I would highlight that. I'm going to go ahead and put the configuration files in the same path. Click next. Oh, so I've already done a restore to the server, so I just need to give it a different name that's unique. So we'll call it restored to. And now this is my final screen. So on this last screen, I can choose whether or not I want to power on this virtual machine once it's restored. Now in this particular case, I don't want to power it on. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit finish. And what that's going to do is it's going to submit a job. It's going to go out there and it's going to push that basically VM back into that Hyper-V environment. Now, that's kind of a newer way of doing the restore. So instead of files and folders and rebuilding the box, we can push back the full virtual machine. But the last way to recover is kind of my favorite way to look at. It's the ability to minimize that downtime. So we can come in here and we can look at our boot up area, which I've got organized into some different boot groups. So here we can see that we have this Windows 10 Hyper-V server. Let's go ahead and we will power this one off. And we'll boot this one up. So right here, we just tell it that we want to boot up. Again, we pick from what point in time we want to boot it from. Here we would give it a unique name. We're going to tell it how much memory to give it, how many processors, whether or not we want to put it onto a network. In this particular case, because the other machine's up and running, I don't want to put it on the network. And then we have other things that we can configure down here if you need some more in-depth control about this type of VM that you want to create. And then we simply hit boot. Now what that's going to do is it's going to, as we can see, we've got this little arrow. It's actually bringing that online on this machine right now. And it's going to boot it up. This is that part where we give you that 15-minute guarantee. So as we can see, we're already starting to see it boot up. I can go ahead and connect to it. We're going to see Windows logo. This machine's starting to come online. So this is the best way to minimize your downtime, right? So if a server gets corrupted or something crashes, just go ahead and log into our appliance, boot it up on your production network. Now everyone can work as normally. And then once you get the physical machine fixed or that environment fixed, you can go ahead and restore it back into that environment. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about, now that we've looked at how do I configure my backups, what are my 3 different ways that I can recover, is how do I do that recovery in the cloud, right? How complicated is it for me to recover to the cloud? And then once I do that, how complicated is it for me to get back from the cloud, right? Because getting there is the easy part usually. It's getting back on-prem with the latest data that can sometimes be complicated. So if we take a look here, to manage our cloud side, it's very easy. We just come over there and we would say manage cloud, and that's going to bring up the cloud side, the cloud application or the cloud appliance for you. And here we can see it looks very similar to the on-prem one, but there are a few differences. One of them I'd like to point out is around booting. So we still have our boot groups here. So we could either boot one server or a group of servers, but now we have a tab called orchestration. Now, orchestration allows us to do a lot of great things. Let's go ahead and make sure that all right. So orchestration, it allows us to kind of time how we want things to happen when we come up in the cloud. If we're booting locally, we're most likely doing that because 1 or 2 servers might have come down. But if we're going to be moving to the cloud, we're going to be bringing all those production important servers with us. So once we do that, we're going to want to be able to make sure they start in the correct order. So here we can see that the first thing I'm booting up is my domain controller, and then I'm waiting a period of time. Then I'm booting up my file server, and then I'm booting up my web server. Now, what if I wanted to add more to this orchestration? That's easy. We just drag this down here, and we'll go ahead, we'll grab some Hyper-V servers. So here's a Hyper-V Windows server, and maybe we want to use that as a client to be able to test all this once we boot up in the cloud. So whether it's physical, virtual, Hyper-V, VMware, we're going to treat it the same here. And we're also going to treat it the same as far as once it's running in the cloud. One of the big questions I usually get is, all right, so we ran in the cloud. How complicated is it to go from the cloud back to on-prem? So it's really simple. All we would do is make sure that we've got that VM shut down. So yes, it does have to be powered off for this. We're going to shut it down so we know it's getting no new data and it's the absolute latest copy. We hit create backup job. What that's going to do is it's going to create a backup job. It's going to back up just the change blocks since it was running in the cloud. Here, if we go over, we can see, oh, we don't have a job in here. It's already ran it. So we can come up here and we can look at this job. And then we say, okay, well, what do we want to do with this job? Blocks from the cloud back to the on-prem site. Now, again, it just has to push the changed blocks. So it's going to be very quick to move this data and get it back on-prem for you. Now, once we're here on the appliance on-prem, we would simply go back in and we would go to do that restore, and we would pick from that most recent copy of that backed up data. Now, if you guys have any questions on that, or you want more details, or you want to actually see it work, with a more detailed demo, please reach out to us. We'll absolutely be happy to set up one-on-ones with you guys and be able to do that for you. With that being said, I'm going to pass it back to Kelly for quiz time.
All right. Thanks so much, Chris. Really appreciate that demo. I'm amazed that in all that you showed just now took the same amount of time as me going through a few slides. So maybe I need to go through that stuff quicker because you covered a lot. So thank you. So here is our quiz question, and I am going to put my email address there in the chat. That is how you will send in your answer. So feel free, you can just reply to the invite for today's call, which is from me, or you can just start a new email and copy and paste that email address there in the chat. So if you guys want to get that teed up, so that's how we're gonna select our winner. Whoever emails me with the first correct response will be our winner. So the question is what is the length of the contract offering for DRaaS, disaster recovery as a service? So all Chris has been covering today, that's all a part of DRaaS. And at the beginning of the call, I covered how long the contracts are. So it might be more than one option. That's your hint. So yeah, go ahead and send that off to me. And then in the follow-up, I'll let everyone know who our winner is.
Kelly,
first, do we want to go ahead? Oh, yeah, go ahead. Sure.
I was just going to say, I do see a question in here from Tom, and I'd like to address
that.
Oh,
okay.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You only need to install the agent on the Hyper-V host. All of the guest VMs are agentless. That being said, if you wanted to back them up via an agent, we have the ability to do that. But the easier way is to just put it on the Hyper-V host, whether it's a regular Hyper-V server or core, push the agent on there, and then you add it into that Hyper-V tab, and it's going to discover all the VMs, and then you just pick which ones you want to protect.
Excellent. Thanks, Tom, for your question. Do we have any other questions? We're going to go ahead and open it up. Everyone is muted in the GoToMeeting, so that way we didn't hear any dogs barking or music in the background or anything during the call. But if you have a question, feel free to go ahead and unmute your line and ask your question.
We do have a couple of questions coming into the chat. So one of them is, what technology are you
Sure.
guys using to dedupe? So we actually do two different kinds of dedupes. When we're pulling over from a virtual machine and we're doing block level backups, we're doing an inline block level dedupe, and that's going to our dedupe file system. Now, if we're looking at doing file and folder backups, which we have as an option for physical machines or anything that you would want to install the agent on, if you're backing it up at the file and folder level, we're actually going to do a file and folder level dedupe. So it's a little bit different depending on how you back up the data, but most data is backed up via our block level dedupe. And again, that's an inline dedupe to be able to minimize the amount of blocks that we're storing, not only on the array, but we keep that dedupe between both arrays. So it also limits the amount of data that we have to replicate. With some of our competitors, they end up in situations where they've got to kind of reseed data. Because our dedupe is global, we don't run into that particular system. So we have another question in here. Says it may need to go offline. Is it possible to do a full DR cloud test with a client, as in allow them to do work in the cloud on the servers? Absolutely. That's definitely something that you guys can do. We also encourage it. We have the ability to also do a offline kind of cloud test where you can boot it up, not have it affect production, but still VPN into that environment, do the test, make sure that the different servers are talking to each other, make sure that everything's working the way that you would want it to, and then shut it back down. And most likely you'd probably delete those test VMs at that point, but that's going to be up to you guys. You don't have to contact us at all to do that either. You can just log into the dashboard, launch the secondary, and go to town and do the testing. We also don't have any limitations on how long you can do the testing. So if you guys, we had Puerto Rico got hit by a hurricane. We had some people running in our cloud for 4 or 5 months, and their bill really never changed, unless the amount of protected terabytes went up. But we don't charge extra for taking advantage of the cloud and using it for testing or using it for, unfortunately, sometimes disaster recovery. So that looks like the last question, and we're running a little short on time here. Kelly, do you want to wrap things up?
Looks like we have one more question there from Ruben. Would you be able to answer that on the limit of servers allowed? Do you see it there in the chat?
Yeah, no, so there isn't a limit of, per se, servers. The limit really starts to become on how many machines they need to be able to boot and how much resources that appliance is going to need to be able to do that. So we do have thresholds. We have a variety of appliances all the way from one that's the size of a toaster box all the way up to a 4U server that's got tons of RAM and CPU. But there are certain instances where people have got thousands of VMs, and we might have to break that into 2 different appliances or 3 different appliances to be able to accommodate that workload. Because we want to make sure that, even though you are booted in DR, you're still going to be able to get some performance and be able to get work done.
Excellent. All right. Well, looks like that's it for questions. Thank you so much, everyone, for the time today. We certainly appreciate it. Like I said, Chris and I try to do these about once a month. Last month, you could see we were slacking since that was right around Thanksgiving time, so sorry about that. But thanks again for the time. I'm going to go grade those papers and see who won the gift card. I'll send out a follow-up a little later this afternoon. And if you have a colleague that was interested in watching this but didn't get to, we did record it, so I will have that recording link available. Just let me know. All right, thanks so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.